Welcome to the Laughing Tavern. You know me as Rich the First Time DM. Behind the bar, Bo. Bo is one of the players in my campaign. He plays Bombly. Bo is also the DM I play for every other Friday. How you doing today, Bo?
Fine, just fine.
Today, Bo and I will be sipping on the Laughing Tavern's signature cocktail, the Arcane Cherry Whisper, while we discuss a few D&D related topics. Welcome to DMs at the Tavern. Now let's check out that signature cocktail and start talking about today's topics.
We're going to show you how to make our Arcane Cherry Whisper. We're going to start with 1.5 ounces of vanilla bourbon, a simple splash of cherry bitters, about 3 dashes will do you. You're going to take a spoonful, just a bar spoon, of maraschino cherry syrup and give that a twirl. Wow. Strain it off over ice. Add maraschino for garnish. And there you have our Arcane Cherry Whisper.
Now that we have our cocktails, let's start today's video talking about DMs banning spells. What do you think about DMs that ban spells? And do you ban spells at your table?
I personally do not. DMs who ban spells at the table, I find often have an issue with either creativity or thinking on their feet. Not that they can't do it, mind you, just that some of their players may be a little more, what would you say? Let's say creative. Let's call it creative. With some spells.
Well, you play with some, you run table with some very creative people, and you've never banned anything on us yet. So
I haven't had a reason to, and I've been rather lucky with that. Most of my players are experienced, and they have that kind of they have an understanding of those silent agreements with players. You know,
not to overdo
not
it,
to, not to completely be a jackwagon, but like if you're. But if you're coming to the table, right, it's your first time at the table, you've never played before, and you see something like Clone or Simulacrum, which I believe are two of the bigger ones that do get banned overall, and you kind of want to go a little bit ham with it, odds are you're probably not going to get to them because they're fairly high level to begin with.
And they take like a year to do.
It's
in game time, it's hard to do.
But you can see as a new player, seeing those, yes. I guess what you'd call DM spells, as wow, this is pretty cool. Wait, there are more of me? Which it's something you can absolutely do, but clone is not what you're looking for, you know?
Right. I don't ban spells either. As you know,
yeah.
I have not banned silvery barbs. You guys use it all the time. I'm just keeping track of how often you do because it will come back one day. I even did a video where I said banning spells is lazy because I'm with you. Don't ban a spell. Work around it. Figure out how to work around how your players use it. If they spam silvery barbs, start keeping track and use it back.
Start spamming silver and barbs. Yeah.
Yeah, you just use it back at them. It's the best thing to do.
You know, in my experience, something like silvery barbs or counterspell, I think especially with the newer way counterspell is done, it's never really been. It's not as big a deal as people make it out to be.
No.
Like I'm Bombly is a bard, and I know one of our other players also took silvery barbs, and it's helped us. True enough, it's helped us all well, but it's failed us more often. It's failed us more often than not, really.
You know, when the BBG fight comes in, you guys get, there's 20 casters, and all they do is cast silvery barbs. You brought it on yourself.
Now, not to come down on people who ban spells. I get why you would.
I understand too. I totally get it.
Something is out there, but I would encourage that. I would encourage somebody who is DMing to not ban those spells, if for no other reason than to give your creative muscles a bit of a flex.
Yes.
But that is dependent on the crowd you're playing to, of course.
Absolutely.
If you're with a pack of murder hobos, obviously that's not going to go over very well.
You can also work with the player to change the spell if it's messing up your game too much.
Of
You
course.
can also modify it. It's D&D. Homebrew everything. Change everything. We haven't had to do it yet, but we've worked together in cases of, can I use this spell now? And I'll be like, nope, no, because
Right.
for whatever reason, it wouldn't work in that situation.
Right.
And you have no problems with it
No.
as a player. So.
Usually, most players won't, in my experience.
Most won't.
If you can come, like, you should ideally feel safe coming to your players with something like, hey, this spell's kind of breaking, or, hey, we're doing a little change on this spell since it wouldn't match the setting. Like, for example, say you're in the plane of water, right?
Right.
Water walk may not work like it's supposed to. Depending on your iteration of the elemental plane of water. I think since Sword Coast, I guess it's always really been just a plane of water, no up, no down, no sky, just water.
You're in space, yeah.
So,
but it's water.
But alternatively, say it works like it's supposed to. Say your players don't have a swim speed. Say they need to get away.
Yeah.
You can infinitely go up with it.
Yeah, absolutely. You could.
But, like I said, you could also go, hey, that's not how water walk works.
Cheers.
That's not how water walk works.
But in my game, how many times did I change Counterspell in that first year of playing?
Yeah.
To try to make it work better for how it's supposed to work.
And players, be nice to your DMs, please.
Please work with them.
If they're new, listen to them. Try to just understand where they're coming from. Obviously, you don't want railroading, but that's another thing.
That's another topic. Thankfully, both of us play at tables where there are DMs as players and very experienced players that may not be DMs, but they've been playing for 20, 30 years.
Right.
So both of us are lucky that we don't really have newbies anymore. We did. We have one at our table. It's her first campaign, but she's not a newbie. Right. She's been watching Critical Role for 8 years.
Right.
so she understands the game.
Yeah, she's at least aware of some of the finer social points.
But yeah, DMs will ban spells for newer players or because they just don't want to deal with the hassle of making it work.
What I would boil it down to is communicate.
Yes.
We're in a storytelling game. We have to communicate in order to play the game, and you can't communicate with your DM about a funny spell, or DMs, you can't communicate with your players. You might want to find another group.
Communication, as with everything else in D&D, is normally the solution to problems. Talk to the players, talk to the DM, talk to each other. So I think that's pretty good for banning spells. So we both don't do it. We get why, but try not to.
Just, I would say don't do it for the practice.
There we go. Second topic. What are your favorite spells to use as a player?
First out the gate, mirror image. It's one that Bombly gets a lot of use out of.
Very true.
Mostly because it's a little something different than just shield, but it's also something you can stack on top of shield or mage armor to make yourself a little bit less squishy. If you couple that with something like mislead, which is one of my other ones, I think you end up with a fun experience of somebody who just kind of disappears and stabs somebody in the butt cheek or something.
Yeah, and as a DM, I hate when I have to roll to hit you twice, basically, because I have to get through the mirror images. Yeah. So, yes, Bombly avoids a lot by using that thing.
I mean, it's basically 4 free hits. You can't...
Pretty much.
You can't argue with that too much, especially when you have an AC of 14 to 16. Bombly doesn't, but most casters will have something between 18 to 16 in the late game, something like that.
Yep.
Not everybody can take a pit fiend to the face.
No, that is true. I like Misty Step. I get into trouble a lot playing the characters I do. I always end up being too close for comfort, and Misty Step just helps me get away. Or I like to use it too, and I know it's made some of your encounters go sideways when we just Misty Step dash out of the way.
Yeah.
And just we're gone in 100 feet. Nothing you can do about it. But
yeah, I mean, spells like that are great. I mean, there's this there's this sort of preconception in D&D, in my opinion, that that often your only option as a player is to fight whatever the DM has put in front of you. Uh,
No.
saying no, closing the door,
Closing
and
the door.
leaving is an absolute option.
Quick story, we did that in my first character in your campaign, the
Oh,
Dungeon
yeah.
of the Mad Mage. I walked in, my character Zogan, a Gloomstalker, walked into a door. Bo told me that there was a creature in the water. I went, nope, shut the door, and backed away.
Right, which is
And I
a
know
perfectly valid thing.
it was funny, and I did it a couple times.
It was, and it was a genuine problem. Like, if memory serves, I want to say it was some big screw-off Sahuagin statue with a few others, and it started to activate.
Yes.
And Zogan just left. Locked the door back, and it was never a problem. It never came up again.
Nope. I like Chromatic Orb because it allows you to pick your damage, and the new version allows it to bounce now between enemies. So Chromatic Orb is even better now.
See, I didn't know anything about the. I didn't know that Chromatic Orb bounced now.
It does now.
Does it bounce like
Lightning Bolt or Chain Lightning does? Yes, it's similar to that. Where
no.
Like
It was.
Creature.
I want to say it was like Older Witch Bolt or something. I may be wrong, but
Hmm.
there was one spell that would like continue bouncing when you roll the D10, and only on a 10.
I don't know.
Like it's 2014, and I cannot think of the spell now for the life of me.
Well, viewers, if you know what it is, please comment.
Help us out.
Because we're not going to sit here and go through the 2014 handbook.
No, absolutely not.
You know a favorite spell of yours?
Well, actually, I mentioned it earlier. Mislead is a lot of fun. It's super handy to have early game.
Right.
For those of you who don't know, Mislead basically lets you leave a clone or an illusory double of where you are, turns you invisible, and lets you saunter off.
What level spell is that?
I want to say 3rd or 4th, but I could be
Wow,
wrong. It's not a high level
Wow.
one. I want to say it's like mid. It's somewhere in the middle, somewhere between 3 and 5.
Okay.
But it does drop off a bit once you get to the point where creatures start having true sight and tremor sense because you're still on the ground.
But if it's only a 3rd level, it's good for the first low to mid tier game.
Oh yeah, you can get
to lose its value.
I mean, even if you did run up on a boss that had it, the likelihood of its minions having something like that.
Very true. You're going to avoid the minions.
Yeah, it's really not that serious if something like that doesn't work on like a dragon.
Right.
The important thing is getting to that boss without eating up your resources, right?
Very true.
So one of you casts Mislead, somebody else slaps Pass Without a Trace. You can go wherever you want to go. And it's been a lot of fun to play with as Bombly.
Yeah.
That's another one of my spells.
You haven't used it that much, though, have you?
No, I haven't. You kind of ramped up on us a little bit when we started getting all these magic items and stuff. So it hasn't.
I hand out magic items like they're candy.
So it hasn't come up too much anymore.
Gotcha. You guys are also level 13 now. Almost everything you fight is going to have True Sight or at least Blind Sight or Tremor Sense, like you said.
I think the last thing you gave us that didn't have True Sight was... No, because that was a Mind Flayer, not a Drow Village that we went blasting out of. So, no, it's been a good year since I've had a opportunity to use it. I'd say it dropped off at about 10th level for me in usability.
But that makes most sense if it's a 3rd or 4th level spell. About 10th level, you're starting to hit the upper tiers of play.
Yeah.
So you're going to be
Be sure to let us know how wrong we are.
Yes, please, as always, because, there's only like 50 years experience here, so we could be wrong. Absolutely. All right. Well, before we move on to our next topic, be sure to give us a thumbs up, hit that like button, click subscribe, share the link with your friends, do all that, ring the bell. It all helps us out. And also, check out our merch site. Check out the Ko-fi site. We have a blog where I'm recapping the sessions for my campaign, the Grey Watch Adventures, which Bo plays as Bombly. So please, go check those out. Man, this is fun. This cocktail's great, but we got to get to the final topic. What is your best piece of advice you would give to all new DMs?
Just make up cool stuff and put it in where it's needed, right? So, for example, say you have an idea for a really cool village, and then you have this idea for this really neat trick dungeon run by a little nearsighted kobold. And then say you have this character plan, right? All set, all ready to go. Just make them cool and improv in between. These little spaces here, improv. You just want your characters swinging from one peg to another, and it'll make your life a whole lot easier just to make up individual experiences and then have your players help you tie them together. Right? That way you're not taxing yourself, you'll save a little bit of time on prep, and you can just kind of let your imagination run how it wants to.
With the players fill in the gaps.
Exactly.
For me, it is don't compare yourself to other DMs. One of my first videos for this channel almost a year ago was entitled, You Are Not Matt Mercer. There's a reason. Bo and I run our games differently. Our prep is different. He does voices. I can't do voices. I try. I do a couple. But both games are fun. Our players both enjoy it. We keep coming back. We've coming back for years now for each of us.
Oh, yeah.
But you are not somebody else. What works for you and what works for your table is not going to be what works for the DM down the street. So don't compare yourself. You are not going to win. Yes, you are not Matt Mercer. You're not Brendan Lee Mulligan. And you're not supposed to be. They do things wrong. You do things right that they don't. So just hang in there. The more you do it, the better you are.
I mean, at the same time, you should be a little bit sympathetic, right? There's a lot you can learn from them, true enough. And there can be, especially as a DM, a bit of pressure, especially with the way things have been going. And don't get me wrong, I'm not hating on any of the big guys or anything. I'm not hating on Matt Mercer or at all. I'm super stoked to see this hobby is, out in the world as it is. But it's like you said, comparing yourself to professionals is just, you're a hobbyist. You're a hobbyist, and that's okay.
This is a game. You don't have 10 hours a day getting paid to do this.
If you want to make a living, by all means, we encourage you to do it. That's what we here are doing. We want to take what we love, give something back to everyone else, and hey, if we can make a little something on the side with it, so be it.
So be it. It is what it is.
But first and foremost, DM your way to have fun. Just have fun, and your style will square up just have fun, and your style will fall into place.
The more you are behind the screen, the more you'll figure out who you are as a DM and what you need to be successful and what your players want. What you want and what your players want, it has to gel. And if it doesn't, you're not going to have fun, and you'll know. So just give it time. It comes in an experience. I've been doing this now for about 3 years. How long have you been sitting behind the screen now?
Off and on for 12-ish.
Yeah, and I've been playing since the 80s. So
yeah, see, I jumped on
there's
about
a big difference there
myself. So
it comes.
It does.
Trust me. I'm better than I was a couple years ago.
I'm still settling into my DM style, right? I thought I wanted to be something. I thought I wanted to have my style to be a little bit something serious and adventure with a little bit of whimsy. But the whimsy has taken over.
Whimsy is awesome. Maybe one day we'll release something from the Laughing Tavern.
Sure.
That talks about the Willy Wonka from Hell campaign that Bo created for us, which was a blast.
I think we've been calling it the food verse on
the food verse. Yes, the food verse. But any final party words for our first DMs at the tavern for anybody watching?
Oh, dude, cheat. Cheat. Not unfairly, mind you. Here's what I mean. You're behind the screen, and most people won't see what you're doing, right? That boss battle, that boss you have that they're currently beating the 212 hit points out of, it doesn't have 212 hit points. It now has 5 turns to be on the table and mop your players up. And even if you don't want to do that, even if you want to kind of organically give it out, tweak the numbers a little bit. Say one of your players roll 13. I'm going to bump that up to a 15, make it a nice round number, and make my life easier for math. And ultimately losing out on 1 to 2 hit points, damage points here and there, It's not the end of the world,
No.
and nobody's going to notice.
Encounters have a pace.
They do.
You'll know when it's a really fast encounter, which sometimes is great, but sometimes, like Bo said, you want that boss battle to go more than a round. Make changes, but you'll also get to the point where the battles become a slog, and you will know this.
Mm-hmm.
Change it then too. All of a sudden, the creatures start dropping off faster. In one hit, that was only doing 10 points of damage. That's all it had left. Jeez, roll with it. Make it flow. You'll figure that out as you sit behind the screen.
I'd say actually that's a very good point. I'd say maintain your flow. Your flow is in my opinion, the most important thing you can do. Because a lot of us don't have 5-6 hours we can sit down and dedicate to a game. No. So, and for those of you who can, good for you. But a lot of us don't have the attention span, don't have the game group for it. So everybody's flow, everybody's pacing is going to be a little bit different. The important thing as a DM is to keep in mind that flow and change with it. It's like you said, are we slugging? Well, now the boss only has 12 hit points. Oh, make it narrative. If it's slugging and there's a bunch of minions in the way, guess what? That dragon doesn't give a shit about the minions.
If the minions are still on the map, it's just we've done it.
Yeah.
All right, we're just you guys wipe the floor with them because they're all what's left, and just move on.
Let your players get creative. Let them crash the dragon into one of their layer features.
Yeah.
Let them crash the black dragon into that acid geyser. Pull that geyser off the field and do some acid damage. Oh, well, no, it's a black dragon. You can't do acid damage to a black dragon.
But
my point remains valid, though.
Yeah, so just spend time behind the screen. You'll get it. Well, please leave a comment letting us know whether you agree or disagree with what we discussed. Because after all, let's be real, hopefully you do disagree so we can get some comments going and get some discourse. Also, feel free to suggest other topics or leave a question you want to see us answer in a future video. Thanks as always to Kay Marie. She's the artist behind the logos you see in our videos, the merch site, and across social media. Check out the other videos on our channel. We have DM and player tips, along with board game reviews. Thanks for watching. Remember to be kind to each other, accept each other, and love each other. And Bo, I'll have another.